Don't you find it confusing how Elle could lay the smackdown on a monster in about 5 minutes in Season 2, but suddenly seems to have lost her superpowers after the fight at the end of Season 3? And what secret can Millie Bobby Brown reveal about using her superpowers? And why is there a big chance that 11 may become a villain in Season 4? Hi there, I'm Peter, and you're watching Awesome Movies, and we're about ready to reveal all the strange secrets about 11's superpowers. To see what went wrong with Elle in Season 3, and what we should expect from her in Season 4, we need to understand her storyline. So, here's a short fun recap. Let's start with the fact that Elle's unfortunate mum Terry took a cash deal where she agreed to take part in an MK Ultra-esque experimental trial involving medication that would expand the boundaries of the mind. But, surprise, surprise, Terry was pregnant at the time of the experiment, and this results in us getting a bouncing baby girl all chock full of psychokinesis. This baby, briefly known as Jane, but now known only as 11, was then kidnapped and raised in the Hawkins National Laboratory. Her new papa, Dr. Brenner, used Elle and her supernatural abilities for his governmental project and other shady activities. Elle goes on to develop into this super powerful Carrie kid, accidentally opens the gate to a different spooky upside-down dimension, lets a monster slip through into our world, and then runs away, all the while pursued by the Department of Energy and a whole host of thoroughly bad dudes. Love, hate, friendship, and a whole lot of drama happens, with 11 getting stronger and stronger all the while, before Season 1 culminates in her defeating the Demogorgon. Season 2 sees the monsters somehow come back in a strange new form, but we won't waste any time on that today. Before Elle confronts the Demodogs, defeats the Mind Flayer, and closes the gate in the final fight, all accompanied by her trusty, gun-wielding father substitute Hopper, Elle runs away on a solo journey where she meets Kali, another child with a familiar numerical tattoo and strange powers to boot. And with the help of her sister-in-arms, 11 learns how to harness her anger at will, and courtesy of her classic 80s makeover montage, somehow becomes even cooler, as if that were even possible. And as we mentioned, Elle makes her return just in the nick of time, defeats the big bad at the end of Season 2, and finally closes the gate. Then we got Season 3, where Elle fights the series' main monster once again, but oops, this time she loses in her battle with the Mind Flayer. And the result? Well, 11 loses her powers, and maybe her new dad too, though we do have a few exciting ideas about that, so keep watching. 11 is finally taken in by a loving family, but it's not quite the rosy picture that Mike promised in Season 1. Instead, Elle becomes part of the Byers clan along with Nancy and Will, and now has to work out how to do the whole long-distance relationship thing with Mike, though considering that he spent 353 days waiting for her, hope against hope, with nothing to go on, I think that they'll probably be able to manage it. Maybe. And there you have it. You're all caught up. That's all you really need to know now before we start our investigation. So, what do we actually know about 11's superpowers? How do they work? And what goes wrong with them right at a suspiciously good moment for the plot of the show? 11's most frequently used power seems to be her telekinesis. We've seen her manipulating objects, people, and even matter with her mind. And when 11 gets angry, oh boy, do things get intense. By the way, that creepy and terrifying look was totally Millie Bobby Brown's idea. The actress didn't want her character to use a sort of fluffy, abracadabra style of magic, and so, while practicing for her audition with her mum, she quite naturally came up with that iconic, angry-eyed look. Another power 11 seems to possess is levitation, possibly the result of using telekinesis on herself. Do you remember when Elle was closing the gate and she got so powerful that as a side effect she was practically flying in that elevator? And don't forget the time when she saved Mike by levitating him to safety after he had to jump off that cliff because of the bullies. Now, it's not really clear why the girl doesn't use the power more often to levitate herself and others. We do know that it can happen when she's extremely peed off. But what's stopping her from channeling those emotions and taking flight? Particularly since we know that Callie taught her how. If I were Elle, I'd put all of my efforts in trying to figure out how to improve those levitation abilities. And next up, 11 can sometimes transmit the voices of people and other sounds to other locations over electronic speakers, like through her phone and a walkie-talkie. We even see her first doing so when she's spying on some random Russian for the Department of Energy in Season 1. And this actually seems like the most useful power as far as the US government is concerned anyway. And you'd think it would come in handy now, especially when you're out of town and your cell phone doesn't have a connection. Haven't we all been there? Why didn't Dustin ask 11 to help him connect with his sweetheart? Isn't that the most logical move, considering how strong his desire is to talk with Susie? And yes, I know that they're trying to keep Eleven's powers a secret, but couldn't she have just given his ham radio a little, boost, instead of them having to lug it all the way up that hill? I mean, Susie would have been none the wiser. 11 is also able to view the memories of others by contacting them through the void, although to do so she has to be able to touch the person or use photos of the person in question. And related to these last two powers, she can also geolocate someone and see what's happening to them right at that moment. Like she did with the aforementioned Russian in Season 1, or, for slightly more personal reasons, during her breakup with Mike in Season 3. But that trans-dimensional travel trickery is probably the most mysterious power she has. It's still not clear how she found the Upside Down in the first place, and whether there are even more dimensions that she could access. Am I the only one put in mind less of Carrie and more of Doctor Strange with his ability to travel between different dimensions and astral planes? Perhaps Elle is capable of something like that as well, but we don't really have an answer to that, and our only hope is that the Duffer Brothers will give us some more hints in Season 4. Elle was also somehow transported into the Upside Down upon defeating the Demogorgon at the end of Season 1. It was kinda a side effect, but the showrunners never revealed how that happened exactly. Perhaps it was done by the Demogorgon himself. It seems like he has some of the same abilities, or at least they're very similar to 11's. In any case, she does possess the ability to physically move between our world and the Upside Down. And it actually looks like Elle doesn't really have a clue how to do so consciously or use it properly, which is a bit of a shame and an underexplored area of her powers. Who wouldn't want to explore the ability to create portals and travel to different dimensions, right? Kind of a real plot hole, especially with that route to Kamchatka and Hopper's death, or disappearance. But we'll talk more about that later. Oh well. Perhaps 11 got overexcited over having a boyfriend, so everything else wasn't of much importance to her except for her locking lips. Teenagers, right? And we also shouldn't forget that after 11 uses her superpowers, she always gets really exhausted. And a nosebleed too. Millie Bobby Brown revealed the secret behind her bloody side effect, by the way. During an interview with James Corden, Brown revealed the process, and well, it involves a lot of corn syrup. She describes the fake blood as a dyed corn syrup mixture that she has to squeeze into her nose before the cameras start rolling. But of course, sometimes Millie gets the timing wrong and the blood just won't come out at the right time. And other times, she can't help but have a little taste of that sweet mixture, which allegedly really irks the director of the day. So, will we ever see that corn syrup again? And what went wrong with 11's superpowers at the 11th hour of Season 3? Well, now's the right time to find out. A mini mind flayer suddenly attacks Nancy. In mere moments, Elle flings it out of the window. A possessed Billy is seconds away from hurting Mike. Elle's there to save his life. Sinister Soviets ready to pull the trigger and blast the gang to pieces. Elle will drop a car on those rotten Ruskies. Then, a piece of mind flayer blob burrows into 11's leg and she's suddenly helpless. She manages to get it out, but her powers go with it. Why? Well, maybe we can explain it for you. Most of the time when 11's superpowers are depleted, it's more like she's low on batteries and she recharges with time. But 3 months pass after she gets the mind flayer out of her leg and nothing seems to have changed. Is it forever this time? Well, here's Millie Bobby Brown's comments on the situation. I think 11 is powerful with and without powers. So I think there's always an exciting journey to explore further. It seems that there'll be an especially interesting challenge ahead for Elle in Season 4, life as an average American teenager. So, will she be able to adapt? They'll come back. I know they will. Mike does to 11 during the final scene. And why shouldn't we believe him? But before those powers do come back, Elle could face a much more difficult challenge than the life of a teenager. And here's the whole theory behind that. Shouldn't there be some consequences to the Mind Flayer's disgusting bite? We know that the monster has the ability to absorb and even take complete control of host bodies. We've seen that happen before with Billy and even with Will. It's possible that this time it'll happen with 11. It's very plausible that when Elle got bitten by the Mind Flayer, she became infected by its evil influence. Even though the Mind Flayer hasn't taken control of her body yet, the infection might allow it in later. And if so, it'll gain access to all of her formidable superpowers from the Upside Down. Choice closed the portal in such an explosive fashion that the Mind Flayer clearly lost its connection to the Upside Down. So, if the portal were to somehow open again, say somewhere in Russia? Because maybe there's a way, hope against hope, of getting your surrogate daddy back? Why then 11 could either get her powers back, or that monster from the Upside Down could start giving its nefarious orders to Elle. If 11 really were infected, the Mind Flayer could definitely turn 11 into a real villain. But that's just one theory. We have another for you. The one which will open a whole new point of view on Hopper's death. Imagine yourself as the director of Stranger Things for a moment. Why would you make 11 lose her powers? Well, the obvious answer is you don't want her to use them for some reason. Well, why would that be? What could 11 possibly reveal with the help of her powers that the Duffer Brothers would want to keep a secret? Maybe it's to keep Hopper's death a mystery. If 11 still had her powers, she'd have used them to search for Hopper after his supposed demise. With 11 not able to use her powers, we can't confirm his death, which keeps it a total mystery until the next season. Perhaps Hopper is trapped in the Upside Down. He could have been transported there when the portal machine exploded, and there are obviously some hints about that in the final episode of the season. The machine exploded with Hopper right next to it, but when Joyce approaches the scene afterwards, there's no body. That's weird. I mean, unless he was completely atomized, an explosion should result in at least a few spots of blood. Keep the door open 3 inches. There's a reason those are the cryptic final words from Jim Hopper in season 3. Wouldn't that be just enough space for him to escape through the gate before it closes? And then, at the very end, we hear of an American prisoner in a Russian holding cell in Kamchatka. Maybe Hopper's alive and not so well in Russia. Or maybe the Duffer Brothers are even more creative than we thought, and the cell contains none other than Papa, Dr. Brenner. I mean, that would explain how the Russians knew about the gate in Hawkins and had the technology to exploit it for their own ends. The Duffer Brothers left us another clue for the upcoming season too. When talking about Hopper's death, they revealed, "Oh, we always talk about The Empire Strikes Back. We always wanted to give him a darker ending. We always wanted to give him a Han Solo sacrifice moment. But of course, and fans will surely recall this, Han Solo did not in fact die at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, which allows him to reappear in Return of the Jedi." So, what do you think? Is the absence of 11's superpowers connected to Hopper's return in any way? And what can we expect to see for both of them in season 4? Let us know in the comments. And, as always, thanks for staying awesome.